I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, my homies? Leighton here for UFC Gambling Addicts, back again for another UFC full card breakdown and predictions video. This one's going to be Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier, the Trilogy, UFC 252. Before we get into this really cool, beautiful pay-per-view card, we're going to do what we always do. Take a look at last week, do a quick recap, and look at the bets too. If you don't want to stick around for that, you can use the timestamps below to skip ahead. As for the bets for last week, it wasn't a great night of profit, but the aim of the game is to profit, and we did, just not a lot. Now, if Derek Lewis would have won in that first round, it would have been a great night of profit. I had about 200, just over £200 of profit coming in on Derek Lewis round 1. So I hedged a little bit of that money around. I had Derek Lewis round 2, round 3. I even sprinkled a little bit on Alexei round 2, round 3. So yeah, if Derek would have won in the first round, it would have been a beautiful, beautiful night. But it wasn't to be. But the aim of the game is to profit, and we did. Okay, doing a quick recap of last week. First fight, we had Vera versus Ali Al-Qaizi. Now, I had Ali in this fight prior to the fight happening. And after witnessing the fight occur, I felt Ali won this fight. You know, it was a split decision, and rightfully so, because it was close. But my scorecard had Ali winning rounds 1 and round 2. The second round was the tight round though, right? It could have gone either way, and that's why it was a split decision, but my scorecard had Ali. Second fight, we had Zalal versus Peter Barrett. Now this was a beautiful showing for Zalal. Again, highlights his speed, technique, defensive grappling, offensive grappling. Even that spinning back kick to the head potentially should have been stopped. You know, Barrett was snoozing. A beautiful, beautiful performance from Youssef Zalal. Gavin Tucker versus Justin James. Now, a lot of people felt Justin James could get this one done, and he could have. You know, he was close to getting it done in that first round, but Gavin Tucker came out strong in that second, has a really good camp behind him in TriStar, a good base of jiu-jitsu and wrestling. You know, his Muay Thai looked really good too, so credit to Gavin Tucker in that one. I'm glad I was on the right side. Really tough prediction to make, that one. Andrew Sanchez and Wellington Turman. Now, I wasn't on the right side of this prediction. Massive, massive credit to Andrew Sanchez. The guy has never looked as good with his striking. You know, didn't even need to really take down Turman, use that type of style. He bullied him here and there, but to see him get it done the way he got it done, really, really shocking, really impressive. Nasrat versus Alex Munoz. Now, this was a beautiful performance. You know, all three TriStar fighters putting in really good performances on this night. Nasrat just a few levels above. You know, the boxing, conditioning, just overall skill. Nasrat is just a few levels, quite a few levels above Alex Munoz. Kevin Holland versus Joaquin Buckley. Now, I took a shot on Buckley, didn't pay off. Massive credit to Home Alone. The finish was beautiful. You know, straight jab, cross, boom. Mouthpiece went flying. Really good job from Kevin Holland. Now, Buckley, he had some moments here and there where he was ripping the body, landing some big combinations, but the length, the kicking game, the experience of Kevin Holland was basically the story in that fight. Tim Means and Staropoli. Now, I got this one wrong. I felt Staropoli would be able to crack the chin at some point and potentially put down the veteran, but it wasn't to be. Tim Means used that experience, you know, clinched when he had to, looked good with his boxing from the southpaw stance, and avoided that big knockout shot, you know. And that's basically what Tim Means is going to offer going forward. If he doesn't eat a flush punch, he's probably going to cruise to a decision. But he could be performing that well right up until that punch lands. And I know that goes for any fighter, but even more so with a guy like Tim Means who's taken that damage. But like I said, if he doesn't take that punch, that's going to happen a lot for Tim Means, you know. He is a veteran. He's seen a lot. He's a good guy. Beneil Dariush versus Scott Holtzman. Yeah, I mean, we all pretty much had Beneil getting it done via submission. But the guy just looks so good with his striking, you know. Really improving in that area is Beneil Dariush. Yana versus Stoliarenko. This fight, I mean, I was wrong, right? I was wrong with this prediction, but this fight nearly sent me to sleep. Yana, 15 minutes of double unders. Moving on. Darren Stewart versus Maki Pitolo. Really good showing from Darren Stewart. Used really good boxing pressure. Stuck onto Maki. Got that takedown. I mean, well, Maki shot for the takedown even. And Darren showing that improved BJJ on the mat. Beautiful. Chris Weidman versus Omari. Now, this was a really lackluster performance from Chris Weidman. You know, you listen to him after the fight speaking about how he's back, how he's going to compete again. I mean, I'm glad to see the guy win, right? But it's so lackluster. You know, he was eating shots. The wrestling didn't look like the wrestling of Chris Weidman back in the day. It came down to the third round, and Chris just had a little bit more to give when it come to cardio. 10-8 in the third round. Omari just couldn't get off his back. It was the right prediction to make. But man, lackluster. It has to be said. The main event, a lot of you guys took Alexei to get that sub. A lot of you guys took Derek Lewis to find the TKO. Now, Alexei had that scarf hold, really trying to get that submission. And he kind of laughed at one point when it wasn't happening. And at that moment, it was kind of like, that is the expression of a guy who knows the opponent is just too big, you know. And in the second round, we saw that. Derek Lewis, violent TKO, really nasty. And that's all she wrote for that fight, you know. Derek Lewis was just too big at the end of the day. All right, guys, let's get into breaking down this pay-per-view card. First fight of this card, we have Christopher Daukaus versus Parker Porter. And we're going to start with Christopher. So Christopher comes into this fight 8 wins, 3 losses as a pro, making his UFC debut. Chris is the older brother of Kyle Daukaus. Nice to see these brothers have made this journey together. Chris is quite a standard heavyweight. He'll look for takedowns if he has the advantage on the mat. As for his striking, it's nothing to write home about. The opponent, Parker Porter, comes into this fight 10 wins, 5 losses as a pro, making his UFC debut. Parker is an old school fighter, actually has a quick loss to John Jones from way back in the day. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I could be thinking about someone else, but I believe Parker is a brown belt in Jiu-Jitsu. Could be thinking about someone else, but I'm going to roll with that still. Parker is quite a technical boxer too. You can definitely see the experience he has when boxing. Originally, I was leaning Daukaus on this matchup, but after watching more tape and doing more research, I'm going to take the old school guy, Parker Porter. I believe his hunger is still there, more experience, better technique, arguably the better conditioned fighter too. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Parker via TKO in round number 3. Potentially a late finish in that one. So getting the odds on that first fight, we have Parker coming in -115, -125. Daukaus returning +100, +105. So yeah, you know, my original lean was on Daukaus because, you know, you see the record of Parker, 10 wins, 5 losses as a pro. old school guy, had time off. But I sense the hunger. You know, I've seen a few of his interviews. He still wants to make it to the highest level of MMA. And now he has. You know, he has more experience. I believe the better boxing too. And that's why I'm going to side with the slight favourite in this first fight. TJ Downtown Brown versus Danny, the Colombian warrior, Chavez. And we're going to start with Downtown. So TJ comes into this fight 0 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Primarily a wrestler. I took TJ in his UFC debut. I felt his wrestling would be the story. And in all honesty, for the most part, it was the story. But Griffin was able to eventually find a submission. TJ may choose to stand and strike in this fight, but if he does, I believe he's given his opponent a good chance. Now the opponent, Danny Chavez, comes into this fight 10 wins, 3 losses as a pro, making his UFC debut. Primarily a striker, training out of MMA Masters. Danny may not have the same wrestling ability that TJ has, but for sure his striking seems to be way cleaner. I've seen a head kick finish that was just so quick, from the ground to the head within a blink of an eye. The technique is a part of that speed. Honestly, this is a really tough prediction to make, because I was quite impressed with TJ's constant wrestling against Griffin in his debut. If he does the same thing here, it could work this time. But something tells me Danny will score the bigger moments on the feet. So it's really a pick of whatever you feel is going to happen more. For me, I'm inclined to take the striker this time. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Danny Chavez via decision. And the odds, we have Danny coming in plus 150, plus 145. TJ returning minus 170, minus 165. So, yeah, TJ Brown minus 170 if he continues to wrestle. You know, if he gets that takedown after takedown, just fatigues Danny and uses that game plan, the same type of game plan he used in the debut, I could see him getting away with it. You know, not really being in too much trouble of a submission. But if Chavez can keep it upright, or make it to the second round, make it to the third round, and keep it close with landing big significant strikes, I think he has a chance of winning over 15 minutes. Potentially even finishing TJ Brown if he can keep it upright long enough. Yeah, tough prediction to make, but I'm going to take the plus money in this one. Moving into the next one, we have Felice, the Lil Bulldog Herrig versus Vera Jandiroba. And we're going to start with Felice. So Felice comes into this fight 5 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a wrestler inside the octagon. And quite a physically strong one too, as most wrestlers are. Felice has fought good competition. Paige Van Zandt, Alexa Grasso, Courtney Casey, Carolina, Michelle Waterson. Those are good names. I was at her last fight live in New York. She couldn't really get her wrestling game going. Carolina having more success with the striking. The opponent, Vera Jandiroba, comes into this fight 1 win, 1 loss inside the UFC. Vera is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and quite a good black belt too, as most Brazilian black belts are. We're going to stop with the as most sayings now, by the way. Vera's debut was quite a tough one against a very, very decent wrestler in Carla Esparza. Carla was able to avoid submissions quite well in the guard of Vera. That gives me confidence that Felice will also be able to avoid submissions if she's in the guard too. I think if Vera is the fighter that's on top, she's more likely to work her jiu-jitsu game. If we're looking at who's the better striker, considering both of these fighters are grapplers, I don't really see a striking advantage. Maybe Felice Herrig because of the experience. She has fought against better opposition. Or maybe Jandiroba's stalking and power shots. Who knows? For me, I feel more comfortable taking the wrestler. The fighter that's experienced more inside the octagon. So I'm going to take Felice Herrig via decision. Okay, so taking a look at the odds for that matchup, we have Felice Herrig coming in plus 250, plus 260. Jandiroba coming back minus 300. That's insane. What have I missed in this matchup? Has Felice Herrig come down with a disease? Has she got one hand? Has she lost a leg? Gone blind in one eye? That's crazy. I mean, anyone taking Jandiroba, I'm not trying to say she can't win. You know, I'm just very surprised that Felice Herrig is such an underdog. I mean, can Jandiroba take her down, use jiu-jitsu, submit her, hold her down, even be more effective with bigger punches? Maybe yes, but Felice Herrig has a chance. She has a way better chance than plus 250 in my opinion. If anyone can justify that line and tell me what I've missed there, I'd love to know. But yeah, let me know what you think about that line. That's a crazy line to me. Fight number 4, we have Herbert the Blaze Burns versus Daniel the Pit Pineda. And we're going to start with the Brazilian. So Herbert comes into this fight 2-0 inside the UFC. Just like his brother, Herbert is a jiu-jitsu master. And just like his brother, Herbert has nasty Muay Thai striking. We find evidence of that when Herbert took basically 5 years off of Nate's life with that violent, beautiful knee. In his most recent fight, we saw that sweet jiu-jitsu. The opponent, Daniel Pineda, comes into this fight 3 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Now returning to the UFC 6 years later. Let's keep it real. Pineda is a 35-year-old 145er. That's a red flag. His most effective ability is on the mat, and that's finding submissions, submitting you. He's coming up against a guy in Burns that has brilliant jiu-jitsu. This matchup has showcase written all over it. I'm not trying to disrespect Pineda. Some may argue that he actually deserves the shot in the UFC again, seeing as he's actually done well to keep winning fights since 2014. But I can't see Pineda winning unless he just lands a Hail Mary bomb at some point. I think both guys will engage in a jiu-jitsu battle, and for me, I'd like to be on the Brazilian side. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Herbert Burns via submission in round number 1. And the odds, we have Burns coming in minus 250, minus 260, Pineda returning plus 210, plus 220. Now this line to me, I can justify. The Jandiroba one a second ago, it's crazy. But Herbert Burns and Pineda, I see Burns being better anywhere this fight goes. Muay Thai on the feet, they want to clinch up against the fence. I think Herbert Burns is going to use elbows, even look for trips to take the back of Pineda. Pineda for me is outmatched. He's a showcase in this spot. If he proves me wrong, massive credit, but yeah, the Brazilian for me. Dun dun. I got 5 on it. Fight number 5. We have Lavina, the Brazilian gangster Souza versus Ashley, Spider Monkey Yoder. And we're going to start with the Brazilian. So Lavina comes into this fight 2 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner on this card. I'll be honest, I'm a fan of Souza. The octagon name, the mentality, the BJJ, I enjoy it all. She suffered a setback in her last fight, completely outclassed by Van Buren with power and strength, and even technique in the striking too. No shame in that loss though, you can't win them all. The opponent, Ashley Yoder, comes into this fight 2 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. What foundation would you guys give Ashley? A jiu-jitsu / kickboxer type of fighter? Ashley hasn't been that impressive so far. Her most impressive performance coming against Siri Kondo, and to be honest, getting Yoder at minus 110 in that fight and having her perform and dominate as a minus 400, that was pretty sweet. I believe the Brazilian side again is the side to be on. Could Ashley Yoder stop Lavina from taking her down? Probably not, especially in the small octagon. Well, could Ashley Yoder submit Souza off of her back? I'd say Ashley submitting Souza is more likely than Ashley defending a takedown. But I'd still have to side with Souza on the mat. I think Souza hasn't got much to worry about on the feet in this one, especially not the same amount of power that Van Buren gave her on the feet. The pick is Lavina Souza via decision. And the odds, we have Lavina coming in -150, -160, Ashley Yoder returning +130, +125. You know, I took Lavina via decision, but I could see her submitting Yoder too. You know, if this fight does hit the mat, Yoder being that, you know, like I said, if I had to guess Yoder's foundation, I'd say jiu-jitsu/kickboxing. If it goes to the mat, Yoder is going to engage with her jiu-jitsu, and that's going to leave Souza in a jiu-jitsu contest, and that's her foundation too. So, yeah, either girl could get a submission, but if I had to pick the most likely, I believe it's the Brazilian. Jim A10 Miller versus Vince from hell, Pichel. My boy, Vince Pichel, let's go. If that's not an indication on what way I'm leaning, I don't know what is. But let's start. Jim A10 Miller comes into this fight 21 wins, 13 losses inside the UFC. You know how we start on this one. A veteran's veteran. A man that's seen it all. A man that can do it all. The problem is, when the veteran know-how doesn't work, Jim either gets beaten up or knocked out. The opponent, Vince Pichel, comes into this fight 5 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a hard worker, a fighter that never gave up, just kept working and eventually made it to the Ultimate Fighter and then made it into the big league. I took Vince against Roosevelt in his last fight. He was able to take down Roberts, land a lot of damaging low kicks, taught Roberts a lesson. And to be fair, so did Jim Miller in his last fight. It's kind of cool that both of these guys have a win over Roberts. The way I see this fight playing out is, if Jim Miller can take down Vince, take his back, or just pepper him with strikes in the full guard, I see Jim doing well. But if Vince can stay upright, his boxing is better than Jim Miller's, I believe. And Vince isn't an easy guy to take down. Gregor Gillespie had a lot of trouble in keeping Vince on the mat, had to really work for it. If Jim can't keep Vince on the mat, I think Vince will start to land bigger punches, potentially finish Miller, or even edge out a decision. So for those reasons, I'm going to take my boy Vince Pichel via decision. And the odds are very close because, you know, Jim Miller could take down Vince and win that style of fight, even find a submission. But if Vince stays upright or makes it very hard for Jim to take him down over and over, starts peppering him with bigger strikes on the feet, then it could turn into a really close fight where Jim Miller starts to take damage later in that fight, you know. Really tough prediction, could go either way. But I have to take my boy. I have to take my boy in that one. Alright, my homies, you know what it is. You know what time it is. If you waited to spoke with me, amen. If you've been smoking the whole time, amen. If you're not a smoker, but you enjoy the smoke breaks, triple amen. Alright guys, we're going to start with breakdown goals. So last week, I brought my breakdown out quite late on a Thursday night. What card was it last week? Man, can I really not think back a week? Yeah, okay, Lewis versus Olynyk. Man, the smoke breaks hit quick. Last week I asked for 2 channel memberships, we hit 2, and we got a rejoin, a resub. I asked for 350 likes, we hit 360. I asked for 100 subscribers in 2 days, we hit 90. So that's the first time we've failed, right? And 90 subs in 2 days, I don't even look at that as a fail, you know? Even though we didn't hit that one, in my heart we still hit that one, you know? Okay, so shout out to all the members, the UFCGA members, Damien D, Matt Cup Fitness, Bricku Donovan, the Def Jam Blaster, Typical Skeptic, Mark Potter, Jason ST, Malik Smith, James Rogers, Bobby Malloy, Joshua Hayward, Wayne NG, Mike Peterson, Ed Venus Rakikas, Dill, Daniel McKenzie, Jamie McClary, Beach City TV, Daniil Watkins, Ras, Andrew, Cody Vaughan, Rishi, Oscar Evingham, Joe Kuehl, Curtis Hale, Rich O'Leary, Michael Kelly, Big Hutch, Jose Aguilar, and Washi was the resub. So if you heard your name there, if you see your name there, you know what it is. Thank you very much. Breakdown goal for this week. It's a pay-per-view. Go big or go home, right? Channel memberships, we're going to go for 4. Likes, we're going to go for 500. Subscribers, we're going to go for 200. Go big or go home. Rome wasn't built in a day, but sometimes they put a lot of effort in, you know? Monday will come around after the weekend. They go hard on the Monday, you know? So they don't got to go as hard on Tuesday. We've got all the quotes here at UFC Gambling Addicts. You know what it is, guys. For those of you who don't know, I have just brought out a Contender Series video where I'll be doing the predictions for Tuesday night. I have a fighter on that card, Corey McKenna. She actually trains, or did train, at the gym that I train at. So really excited to see her get a contract on Tuesday night. She's going to get that contract. I'm very, very sure of it. Her wrestling ability. Watch out for it, guys. Corey McKenna. She's going to be a problem. I can feel it. I hope all of you guys are doing well. I'm looking forward to getting into this main card. You know, the co-main event's a very, very good co-main event. The main event, I mean, I've said it a few times now in the last breakdown, the last few days, even on the Contender Series. I think, did I say it? No, I couldn't have said it on the Contender Series because I was breaking down the Contender Series. It had nothing to do with the Contender Series. But the main event, got the first one right, got the second one right. It would be so dope to get the trilogy right, you know, to go 100% on the main event. That would be really dope. Alright guys, let's get into this main card. First fight on this main card, we have Magomed Ankalaev versus Ion the Hulk Cutelaba. And we're going to start with the Russian, Magomed. So Magomed comes into this fight 4 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. A Russian, so that goes without saying, a brilliant combat sambo fighter. Not only does Magomed have impressive grappling, I believe his striking matches his grappling. And you can't say that for many Russian fighters. You only have to look at the finish against Marcin and Dolce to see that this guy means business with his striking. The opponent, Cutelaba, comes into this fight 4 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Cutelaba is basically round 1 or bust. Or even rope-a-dope and bust if you're looking at his first fight against Magomed. Cutelaba is going to bring that storm early. I doubt he'll be playing games this time. He will look to knock out Magomed in that first round. If he can't find the knockout, chances are he gasses out and gets finished himself either in the second or third round. Whether that's via TKO or submission, I don't see Magomed coasting when Cutelaba is tired. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Magomed via submission in round number 2. And taking a look at the odds, you know, I can't really argue too much against it. Magomed is a really skillful fighter, man. The grappling, the technique in the striking, the composure. You're seeing him improve fight by fight as well. You know, he's looking more and more impressive. Whereas Cutelaba has kind of looked the same, you know, round 1 or bust. That first round is very dangerous, but Magomed just so cool, so composed. I think he can deal with that first round. John, the Magician Dodson versus Merab Dvalishvili. And we're going to start with the Magician. So John comes into this fight 10 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC. A veteran of the smaller man weight class. primarily a striker, lightning quick combinations. Giving John Dodson space to work his strikes is probably the worst idea you could have. Dodson is coming off an impressive TKO win against Nathaniel Wood. The veteran was able to use his experience, his speed advantage to get the job done on the night. The opponent, Merab, comes into this fight 4 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. A madman, a relentless wrestler. If it isn't the first takedown that keeps you down, it's the 5th or the 6th takedown. Merab is like the 135 version of Khabib, and he's just getting better and better fight by fight. He's had trouble in the past securing the takedown. You can see that issue has been worked on. If Merab isn't grappling, he's being quite wild with his kicks, which I like that about Merab. Keeps the opponent guessing. Could John Dodson use his speed advantage, experience advantage, and striking advantage to win this fight? Yes, he could. But could Merab use his size advantage, strength advantage, wrestling advantage, and potentially conditioning advantage to win this fight? Yes, he could. It's whatever you prefer. For me, I prefer the wrestler in this one. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Merab via decision. And we take a look at the odds if I can find them. We have John Dodson coming in plus 150, plus 160. Merab returning minus 175, minus 185. Yeah, I agree with that line because John Dodson made a huge statement in his last fight. Was able to get it done against a prospect. Merab has lost to Ricky Simone and Frankie Saenz. But, you know, the Frankie Saenz one, I kind of scrapped that one. Merab has improved so much since that fight. John Dodson hasn't got the wrestling of Ricky Simone, so it's not like John Dodson is going to be ragdolling Merab. The way that John wins is purely by finishing Merab with strikes. Ricky Simone did hurt Merab at one point. But John, you know, John's going to have to use good speed, technique, good movement because Merab is going to search for those takedowns. And I believe that is the most likely to happen in this fight. So the pick for me is going to be Merab. This is a very good fight. You know, this is a tough prediction to make as well. JDS versus Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rozenstruik. And we're going to start with the former champion of the heavyweight division, JDS. So Dos Santos comes into this fight 15 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC. A legend heavyweight of the game. The former heavyweight champion, like I said. A veteran's veteran. Has JDS still got what it takes to compete at the highest level? I think the answer to that question will be found out in this fight. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Finished by strikes in both of those fights within just over a minute in both of those fights. The opponent, Rozenstruik, comes into this fight 4 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Primarily a kickboxer, a very high level heavyweight kickboxer. I've enjoyed the UFC career of Rozenstruik so far. All 4 of his TKOs have been beautiful stoppages to watch. He did get sent to another realm by Francis in his last fight, but most do get sent to another realm by that dude, you know. Rozenstruik is the way fresher fighter. He's a much better kicker than JDS. But is he a better boxer than JDS? Does he have the experience that JDS has? Could he take down JDS if he wanted to? I believe the answer to all of those questions is no. In most ways, this is really Junior's fight to lose. He has better movement than Rozenstruik, a wealth of knowledge in the sport. This fight will really tell us if JDS should be done or not. For me, I'm going to side with the legend. I think the way he fought against Blagoy is the way he needs to fight against Rozenstruik. Stick and move a lot. Just for 15 minutes, and I think he could outpoint Rozenstruik. The flip side, of course, is the chin is done on JDS, and Rozenstruik just like when he fought over him, could put him out at any given moment, even if he is 2.5 rounds down. But I am going to stick with JDS, put a little bit of faith into him, and hope he performs the way I see it. So I'll take JDS via decision. And rightfully so, JDS the underdog, plus 125, plus 120. Rozenstruik coming back, minus 140, minus 150. So yeah, Rozenstruik has the ability to sleep JDS at any given moment. But the flip side is, JDS is going to use a lot of movement, stick the jab out there, and just basically try to be on his bike. You know, that's how I see him winning. Really could go either way, but I'm going to play plus money on that one. Co-main event, homies, and what a co-main event this is. We have Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera, and we're going to start with the Sugar Show. So Sean comes into this fight 4-0 inside the UFC. Primarily an unorthodox, tricky guy to figure out. Sean will fight out of both stances. He can effectively kick with both legs. He'll spin from both stances. The movement is all a part of setting you up with strikes. Sean O'Malley, since returning, has lived up to the hype. He's such a talented striker that has so much to offer on the feet. The opponent, Marlon Vera, comes into this fight 9 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a dog, just a violent guy who can take damage, continue to walk forward until the damage he's given you is the story. Marlon has really improved over the last few fights of his career. Since losing to Lineker and Andrade, he's really become a different fighter, rejuvenated himself. He's become a Baptist, like Masvidal. Either guy has the ability to win this fight. I think if Vera wins, it's basically he was able to just keep coming forward, ate a lot of Sean's strikes, but ultimately broke Sean. If Sean wins, I think it's because he has so many different tools on the feet. He mixed it up well, never gave Vera that dogfight that he wanted. Used that masterclass type performance that we're used to seeing when it comes to champions, such as Adesanya and a John Jones. Just a different level of performance. For me, I believe Sean O'Malley will be a champion one day. I think he passes this test of a tough dog-like fighter that is Marlon. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Sean O'Malley via decision. You know, I'd be really, really impressed if Sean O'Malley could get that one finished. Does he have the ability and technique, timing? Yes, but Marlon Vera is such a dangerous guy himself and so tough. Sean may be looking to play it safe here and there a little bit more than try to showcase his technique. You know, you look at the finish that he hit Wineland with. Teased the uppercut, then teased the lead jab, and then came with the cross. The technique of that finish, unbelievable. When you saw that in slow motion, incredible. But the odds, we have Sean O'Malley minus 300, Marlon Vera returning plus 250, plus 260. Is the line a little bit wrong? I would say yes, but at the same time, Sean O'Malley is living up to that hype now. So if he can go in there again and just look even better than he did against Quinones, even better than he did against Wineland, then minus 300 was fine. For me, I'm on the Sugar Show. Alright, main event, homies. And I want to start this main event prediction by saying there is no wrong pick. Alright? If you're taking Stipe, he's won already. If you're taking Daniel, he's won already. It doesn't matter who you're taking. Please don't argue too much in the comments. I know we're going to be split, okay? We're going to be split on this fight. Here we go. Stipe Miocic versus Daniel DC Cormier. And we're going to start with the champion, Stipe. So Stipe comes into this fight 13 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. 2-time UFC heavyweight champion. The current UFC champion. A brilliant boxer. A brilliant wrestler too. Some people forget how good of a wrestler Stipe is. Look at how he dealt with Francis. Not even Curtis Blades in 2 fights could do that to Francis. Stipe Miocic is an all-rounder. He's good wherever the fight goes. The challenger, Daniel Cormier, comes into this fight 11 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. The former light heavyweight champion, the former heavyweight champion, one of the best wrestlers we'll ever see in the UFC. I said for Stipe, a lot of people underestimate his wrestling. I believe for Daniel, a lot of people underestimate his boxing. Now I know some of you are going to make the eye poke joke, but in all seriousness, DC is a good boxer. He uses good pressure to have success with his boxing. Almost likes to fight in the phone booth, you know, has really good success with it. DC will look to stay close to Stipe, target the calf kicks, look for those underhooks, even push Stipe up against the fence. Stipe will look to fire straight shots, 1-2s, just anything that could hurt Daniel. And for sure, the body strikes should come way earlier than round 4. First time round I took DC as a dog, second time round I took Stipe as a dog. Like I said, is there a bad pick in this fight? No, there isn't. We know both guys can win this fight. For me, my pick is going to be Daniel Cormier. I think he has to stick to the game plan of taking Stipe down, pushing him up against the fence, and don't deviate from that game plan. If he does deviate, or Stipe can simply keep making it to the next round like he did in the last fight, we could see a repeat, a late finish. But I'm going to take Daniel Cormier to go the full 25 minutes, stick to the game plan, and show us how he felt that the second fight should have gone. But I feel that's what he's going to do in the trilogy. Now, of course, like I said, man, there is no wrong pick. If you're picking Stipe, could he go out there and knock out Daniel Cormier? Absolutely. Could he get, you know, basically beaten up for 13, 15, 17 minutes and then find a knockout punch or the body shots? Yes, he could. You know, he's proven that, and so has Daniel. But for me, I think the way the second fight was going for Cormier looked good. But I think he needs to stick to the wrestling. You know, he needs to stick to that and not deviate. Don't fall in love with that boxing. You know, he's a very competitive fighter. Both of these guys are very competitive and they always find a way to win more than not. But for me, I'm going to take Daniel Cormier to win the trilogy. I could be right, I could be wrong. I know we're going to be split. Alright, so taking a look at the odds. First time of seeing them, and they're perfect. You know, it took the trilogy to get perfect odds for this fight. Both -110. It's perfect. Alright guys, let me know if you enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know who you're taking in the main event, the co-main event, underdogs on the card, all of that good stuff. Alright guys, peace.